Why do the mega banks, the robber barons for the last 100 years fund communism, socialism, collectivism under many different names? Because they run the show. And it doesn't matter what government agency is out there, they're getting bigger and they're treating you like trash. Now, Judith, looking at these House and Senate bills, let's go over what's in them. I mean, because it really does say you can't can strawberries and sell them without government, fees and regulations and inspectors who just can't wait to get in your house. And they're trying to shut down the farmers markets, as you said. They are going after garage sales. I mean, they don't want us doing anything that didn't run through a scanner, so they know exactly what you're buying, what you're doing. Let's go over this and how we defeat this legislation. But then there's the second part of the story. They're already implementing all this before they even have the law in place. Go ahead.
So what I'd like to focus on is Senate Bill 510, because that's the bill that's active right now, and we just got word that there's a good chance that it'll be voted on next week. So, that is where the action's happening right now. And there's a lot in this bill. It's 225 pages long. So I'm going to focus on just a few core provisions out of it. There's one section that's what they call produce safety standards. And this applies to anyone who is growing, fruits and vegetables for sale. Include, local CSAs, people selling to farmers markets, farm-to-school programs.
Yeah, you're not going to sell peaches on the side of the road. They're going to SWAT team you. And, I mean, they do. They have an undercover cop come up, buy a peach, and then they get to arrest you.
So the first stage, before you get to the enforcement stage, though, the first stage is they're going to be telling you, they're going to be adopting regulations on how to grow and harvest these crops. So FDA is going to be empowered to say, here's what kind of water you can use, what standards you need to meet for your compost, when you could use animal manure, when you can't use animal manure, whether you need toilets in an area, what your workers need to wear, what you need to wear, what you need to wash in, really long, extensive regulations. And, this is something, by the way, FDA is already working on. As you said, even without this bill, FDA is looking at trying to adopt these kinds of regulations. And you would have to, right now, there are no exemptions. Right now, the way the bill is written, if you grow a large backyard garden and you take your excess produce to the local farmer's market, because what else are you going to do with all of that squash? You'd have to comply with federal regulation on how you grew that squash.
So it's a federal takeover of just everything.
It's incredibly extensive, and we've never seen anything like it. I mean, this is very different, even from the power that they already have.
Well, our health care is government run now. I mean, this is the new America.
So that's one big section. The next section that what I try to focus on is what you're talking about in terms of jam making. It applies to anyone who does any kind of food processing, and that means jam making, cheese making, bread making. Someone who makes pies, someone who makes sun-dried tomatoes. Pretty much if you take raw ingredients and you change them in any form or fashion.
And they're already using local zoning under Agenda 21 written by the UN to arrest people for uncut grass, for gardens. I mean, it's already happening.
And what happens now, or what would happen if Senate Bill 510 passes, is that, all these folks who are doing small-scale, food production would again come under federal regulation. And for food processing, it's something called a HACCP, a Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point Plan, or they also have another phrase, HARPC. They boil down to the same thing.
And then basically food wardens, like game wardens, the kid that was a control freak in school, now he's got a gun on his side, and he's coming.
Well, and you have to come, so federal agent will come, and you'll have to create this very large, convoluted paperwork plan that tells, exactly where there could be a problem, what you're going to do about it, how you're going to monitor it, how you're going to test it, what corrective action you're going to take. Just really detailed, and it's up to their approval. So if they don't like what you've written, they can say, go back and do it again.
Hey, but that's like Mao's Great Leap Forward. I mean, the government's going to help us.
There are a lot of problems at the big agribusiness, big food level, but we're not seeing problems. The local jam makers.
Yeah, and folks are finding out the local markets are better, and that's not going to be allowed. So here come the police.
It's going to be, it's one of those things that it's going to, I'm not sure I'd say it won't be allowed, but it's going to be a lot more difficult. It's going to be one of those things that we're going to go from this thriving, vibrant, growing movement to, a few people trying to hold on.
Yeah, no, they're going to nickel and dime you. Listen, they already have undercover police at the Austin markets. I mean, they're already out there. They're not arresting the illegal aliens, kidnapping people. They're there harassing old women selling strawberries.
And, the bigger it gets, the harder it is. When it's at a local level, when it's at a state level, you at least have the opportunity to go face-to-face with folks, go up to the state capitol and talk with them. When it gets...
I don't know. I tried talking to some state police this morning, and they looked right at me and they said, you get in your car and you get out of here. Get out of here. Judith, stay there. Long segment coming up. You'll be able to roll through all these subsections and the enforcement areas. We'll tie it into Agenda 21 and a lot of other things like Livable Communities Act going through. Folks, you want to live in Soviet China, Communist China? You're going to get a front row seat to it, and every control freak's going to be squatting on you. You want to know where all of this is coming from? It's Agenda 21 of the United Nations. All the major governments work with them. The Chinese government loves it. It's what they did with the Great Leap Forward. Literally, I had a top professor on agreeing last hour. And it's total control. You control food and water, you control it all. Don't collect rainwater, a month in jail. Here's a headline, 60 days in jail for overgrown grass in New York State. WVLA. They want to pack their prisons. Now, they were giving people jail time here in Austin for 3-inch grass, mainly old folks. I went and showed city council people with 2-foot grass, the health department with foot-tall grass, and they shut it down real quick. But you got to stand up against these crooks. I mean, it's a parasitic government in almost every level, and the local rules are federally and internationally written. They've got international zoning law, SB 1619, SB 1619, the Livable Communities, which is a biodiversity, smart growth situation, and their stated goal is the end of our industrial society, and that includes farming. And they've also got new rules they're trying to push, and even if they can't have Congress pass it, they're saying any dust from tilling is not allowed. Any dust. Unless you buy variances like big agribusiness does. I saw the cases years ago in the Associated Press where there'd be thousands of violations at Tyson plants in Arkansas, and they wouldn't get in trouble, but then some little plant would get one violation and be shut down. Going back to Judith McGeary of the groups that are out there fighting all of this, I appreciate her joining us. The website's farmandranchfreedom.org. They're trying to pass this bill next week. Let's continue walking through some of the things it does, and then let's get into the enforcement arm and then how we fight this. Judith.
So another one of the things it does is it provides, this is partly enforcement, but they don't phrase it as enforcement. It provides that FDA can charge you for the cost of the reinspection. So let's say they come through your little commercial kitchen where you're making, a small amount of jam for the local market, and they find you've done something wrong, one violation. They can charge the cost of coming back and, charge their travel expenses, charge their staff rates, put the financial burden on that small little jam maker, which creates a wonderful incentive for FDA to keep telling small producers, no, you've done something wrong.
Let's remember the FDA for more than several decades allows certain amounts of cockroach parts, cockroach feces, rat droppings, rat hair in the food legally, but you're not going to be on that standard if they don't like how your kitchen looks and doesn't have an OSHA runway to it. You're going to have trouble.
And that's one of the core issues here is FDA's discretion. There were a lot of changes made to this bill that were intended to sort of be good for small and sustainable farms. But they all come down to FDA's discretion. So FDA is supposed to provide flexibility. FDA is supposed to take into consideration diverse farming practices. FDA can choose to exempt small-scale producers. But all of it boils down to what FDA chooses to do. And their track record is not one of helping small-scale producers. In fact, it's completely the opposite. And so, unfortunately, though, a lot of the senators are looking at this and saying, but we've addressed the issues for small farms. Don't worry. There's flexibility. There's consideration. There's extended deadlines.
There's no death panels in the bill.
Yeah, and I think some of the staff literally doesn't understand it. I mean, to be fair to them, I think they don't understand the reality of what it means to be farming on the ground, what it means to be a small-scale producer. And they need to hear from people. We need calls going into the state to the senators right now, saying, you either need to kill this bill or at the very least exempt out the small-scale producers.
But you've seen all the videos of the Amish and others being raided by police with guns drawn. I mean, you've seen those countless videos coming out where they come in and aim guns at people, you know, who have small food co-ops.
Yes, I mean, it's scary what's going on. It is very scary what is going on, and it's at every level. And right now, it's scattered incidents, but the problem is anytime one of those incidents happens, all of us who are in small-scale production look around and go, ooh, could that be us next? You know, it's terrifying to live with this idea that, significant chunks of the government don't like small-scale producers. And I'll say, and Alex, you and I may disagree on this, but I've talked to some of the government officials at different levels, state, local, federal, and there are individuals in that who are good folks who do support us, who do want to see local food survive.
Judith, the same thing in communist China or Nazi Germany. Mm-hmm. There were Nazis that tried to save Jews. The issue here
is the dominant
is the direction at the top we know is to shut down family farms. As you said earlier, that's admitted. And, I mean, we have John P. Holdren, head of the White House Science Department, saying they want to destroy an industry and literally knock us back to the Stone Age. I played that clip on Sunday. So, yes, there are a lot of people that don't like what they're doing, but it doesn't matter. They still do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just wanted to put in, because I deal with some of these good folks on a regular basis, but the problem is the policies, the people in charge, the dominant theme is still get big or get out. And they're still listening to big agribusiness, and they're still supporting and promoting big agribusiness. And this bill gives them every bit of flexibility they need to continue doing that. They can continue to basically give a lot of big food and big agribusiness a free ride and, slam down on small-scale producers, the way that bill's written right now.
Absolutely. So what do? We call Congress? Are there any key senators to call about this bill?
I think the key is to call the senators from your state. So right now, that's who you're going to have influence with. I'd encourage everyone to call both senators. Remember, you have two senators from your state. I hope you know who they are, everybody. If you don't, you can just call the Capitol switchboard line. It's 202-224-3121. And ask, say I live in Texas. I want to talk to my senators. And tell them to amend or oppose Senate Bill 510. There is going to be an amendment proposed to exempt small-scale direct marketing producers from the two provisions we've been talking about.
Are Kay Bailey Hutchinson, Bilderberg member, and Cornyn supporting S 510?
We don't have commitments from them either way yet. They have not publicly taken positions yet.